We're here. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. We just had a little technical issue. Not a surprise because I'm in the host chair again. I'm Barb Wallace. I am here with my partner in crime, Renee Ryan, the best-selling author of The Widows of Champagne and the upcoming Secret Society of Salzburg. How you doing, Renee?
I'm really doing well. It's we're finally, I think winter has finally left us. Up here in Wisconsin, we go from winter to summer. So we skip spring, except for the pollen. So yeah, it's been really great just writing. I've got my next book coming out in December, but I have the next book after that I'm working on. We're always way ahead of the book that's coming out. And that book is called, the one I'm working on now is called The Paris Housekeeper. And I think I'm going to actually get to keep that title. So I'm really excited.
It's fun.
Mm-hmm. And Donna is away on family business. Nothing bad. But she got called away. But our special guest today is Emily York, the
Yay.
book distiller.
Hi.
Hello. We're glad you could come, Deborah. And so, hi, welcome back. She was here with us in December, and she picked a winner of a book that we loved, Once Upon a Wardrobe.
Yes, Patty Callahan's book. We love that book. I still think about that book, Emily. Like, I'll just have moments where parts of that book will come to me, and I was just thinking earlier today, about, because I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan anyway, and I love that book. So thank you without you, I don't know if I would have read that. So you introduced that to us. So thank you.
It was fantastic. Barb, did you ever listen to or read the Chronicles of Narnia?
We did. We did do it at Christmas, and my husband loved it. I loved it. He actually then went on to read a bunch of the C.S. Lewis, the less on Christianity and the screw tape letters. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's plowing through all those now. So you have a convert.
That's awesome.
A lot of people, we have new people here today. So hello, nice to meet you all. Getting comments, and you picked another winner this month. So. You did. So look at this. Here we go. Ready? She picked The Wedding Veil by Kristy, Woodson, Harvey.
Listen to mine.
The book is a dual timeline. It's got a present day one in where a woman and her grandmother both grapple with second chance romances. And then it's also got a historic timeline where it features Edith and Cornelia Vanderbilt. And what she's done is link them through a wedding veil and through Biltmore Estates. So what made you pick this book, Emily?
Well, I love Kristy Woodson Harvey. She just writes such a variety of things. But since I live right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, the Biltmore is not very far from where I live. It's like a 2-hour drive. So I think you contacted me in the spring, which always seems like a wedding-ish type season. And this book had just come out, and it was about the Biltmore. And so I just thought, and I love historical fiction. So thought it would be an interesting read.
And you said it's been getting some buzz. Why do you think it's buzzworthy? Because that's one of the things we do is we pick a lot of the books that people are talking about. So you would pick this also because people were starting to talk about it in advance.
I think the cover's fantastic. So I think that, and then Kristy has a big following of people. I believe I should have looked at my facts before, but one of her series is being picked up by, I don't think it's Netflix, but by a TV show, I think.
NBC, I think. It's actually, it's the Peachtree ones, the ones. Yes.
The Peachtree Love series.
Yes. And it's NBC, and I think she's co-writing the script, and co-producing, which, I did a little website, Facebook stalking of Kristy. I always try to do that. You know that because I did you last time. And,
people are saying Peachtree Bluff.
I like to do a little bit of my research, and I was just, what an amazing woman Kristy is. Just her credentials and her background, and I love that she blogs with her mother. And when we get deeper into the book, you can tell that she has such a subtext. It was all through this book, but such a love for the women in her own family, and it shows so much in this book. And you just tell that she's a very smart woman, very talented. She's got a huge fan in me now, and I'm just really excited to see what happens next. I mean, she's just skyrocketing. It's great to see. And isn't she in Friends in Fiction? She's one of the co-founders of that as well.
She is.
Yep.
With Patty, with our previous author that we loved her work too.
Right. We decided apparently it's a prerequisite to be blonde and beautiful because all those women are such attractive, beautiful women. I suppose I'll add smart too, but it's the first thing you see in the pictures. Like, wow, everyone down there is really stunning.
And they're Southern. They're Southern ladies too.
Yeah, and I said that about Emily. I was like, well, Emily could be just one of them. She's right on in there. And I'm a Southern woman too, but I obviously am not a blonde-haired Southern woman. But I'm a sorority girl. I was president of my sorority, debutante. I even have I wear my pearls all the time. But yeah, there's something about the North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Southern girls. So Southern Belles, I loved just kind of digging into that. So, so thanks again, Emily. You've just been such a plethora of information for us.
Have you read any of her works before?
No, I had not.
The author.
Yeah, and I think part of it, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later, is I, having written my 27 or 8 romance novels prior to doing my pivot into historical fiction, I think I just really burned out on romances and contemporary fiction. And so I kind of took a step back from reading. So I think when she was kind of skyrocketing, I was pulling away from reading those kind of books. And I think that's just all it was. It was just kind of like a mist in the air. But now having read her, I'm just like, okay, I need to go back and take a look at her backlist.
Yep.
Sure.
Renee, just interrupt. Someone wants, Debbie Stone wants to know what sorority.
Alpha Delta Pi.
I was the same, remember?
That's right. That's right. We are Pi Love.
We didn't have sororities at Simmons. We were just all one big sorority because there were no men.
Yep.
So, and someone wanted to remind us that the other members of Facts and Fiction, Friends in Fiction, are Kristen Harmel and Mary Kay Andrews, who are also beautiful women. So,
absolutely, absolutely. I have a little connection to Mary Kay Andrews. She wouldn't know about this, but she has a house on Tybee Island, which is just outside Savannah. I lived in Savannah for years. And there was a time when she would rent it out to writers to spend a week retreat, and all I had to do was give a short story for this anthology in order to be able to stay in her beach home. And so I got to do that. I got to stay in her beach home and write for a week. It was just glorious. I was just like getting all those vibes in here. It was when I was writing for Amazon, one of the Amazon publishers. So it was just a really fantastic connection.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, we'll steer back to the book just because. What do you all think?
Yep. Go ahead, Barb.
Oh, no, go ahead, Renee. You were talking.
Well, I was just going to say, Emily, you touched on it. We always start when we discuss the books, we start from the outside in instead of the inside out. So let's talk about the cover. So we'll start with Emily. What do you think? I mean, obviously you loved it. So what was it about it that you loved?
I do think it's some of the wedding vibe, and as I was, it was wedding season and thinking about things like that. It's interesting that it is a side-looking profile. We've been seeing so many faces of the back, or now we're seeing some front of the women, but looking down, you don't really see their faces. So this is a silhouette. But like I said, I love anything to do with the Biltmore just because I have fond memories of visiting there. So that really pulled me in.
Well, and knowing that it really is the Biltmore, that it's not just some photoshopped, just a big old house. And if you've been to the Biltmore, as you have, it's just magical. My father has a home in Wolf Laurel, which is kind of near Asheville. And so we've gone up there a lot, and the Biltmore, and at Christmas time, it's so magical. And we'll talk about that when we get into the book, when Barb directs us through the book. But I just, it really is a castle, an American castle. I love the colors. I like the blue. I think the blue of the sky is just so peaceful. The wedding veil. And then I loved the color, how it said the wedding veil just kind of pops out because it's nice and red. And then of course, she's got a quote from Fiona Davis, and I don't know, does that help you buy books, or does that catch you, Emily, when you see like a famous or an author that you like with a quote on the front? What do you think about that?
Well, this is why I want to know what authors think. It does work for me because I love Fiona Davis's works. And I already knew Kristy Woodson Harvey, but if I did not know the author and it was an author that I really loved and appreciated their works, it does draw me in to say, oh, it's endorsed by so-and-so. Maybe I should read it. I don't know if it's marketing or what, but it works for me.
That's why they do it.
Good to know, because that's something the authors always debate back and forth about, does it really work or not? But this one was right up front, which makes it a big difference. Like the little circle was kind of like a super endorsement.
It really was. I have not seen that on her other books before.
No, I've never seen it on a lot of books. I've seen like Across the Top or whatever. That was really interesting. And the colors stand out because right now they seem to be going back to like that dark gray kind of somber look with a lot of the historical fictions. And this is very romantic and bright and summery. So I think as far as marketing, like if you see it on a bookshelf, it's probably jumping out at people because it says fun, nice read, not people die. It's World War II. You know, it tells you it's going to be light and fun, which is what you want in the summer.
Right.
But wait until you open up the book.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. Do think it jumps out. And I think people just kind of want a happy read these days. So I know I do. So
yeah.
Well, okay, so going back, there are a lot of people here who have read it and loved it, so they already know this. But it tells the story of 4 separate women, 2 current and 2 historical. So let's start with the line first, because it was the stories of Edith and Cornelia Vanderbilt. So you guys apparently were very familiar with the Vanderbilt story. I know Renee was. Were you?
I knew some of it. Like I knew that the Vanderbilts had built it, but I really did not know much about them and went on a whole mad dash Google search afterwards, you know,
that's
learning
what I
more.
was doing. I knew nothing about any of these. I knew about the New York Vanderbilts, none of about the Southern Vanderbilts. So
well, I did what you did, Emily, but I did it after I had gone to the Biltmore and I had done the tour. And, you know, it's, I did know that George and Edith had a legendary love affair. Like it was considered quite the love match and they truly were in love. And that wasn't typical of the time period, especially in among those industrialists and those kind of uber rich families. And I do also know, I remember, and this just stayed with me, is how they had separate bedrooms. And it wasn't because they weren't madly in love and wanted to be together, but it was to protect the servants from when they were dressing them. So that then when the female chambermaid, for want of a better word, came in to help Edith dress, she would not be subjected to running into George Vanderbilt and vice versa, and that Edith would not be subjected to running into George's valet. And so that part I knew. I didn't, and I also knew that he had built the home before they married. But you know, I did love just kind of digging into their. I had known there was a big romance, and I loved how Kristy captured it on the page.
Yeah. You know what? I think there's some scenes in it after George dies, which is not a spoiler. He dies. It's an historical fact. I'm not spoiling anything of the story. I don't think. But there's some scenes in the library after, and I think that really captured it when she's talking to his spirit, and you really understand just how deeply they loved each other. So, did you all have a favorite Vanderbilt of the 2? Did one storyline stick out more than the other? Kristy, Emily, we'll go with you.
Well, I don't want to get too far into a spoiler.
We don't have to keep looking at the pretty cover, by the way.
I won't go to a spoiler because we're not there yet. One storyline greatly surprised me. And it kind of shaped the way that I view, even though it's a real life person, it just kind of shaped the way I viewed her after that, you know, once I found out. So her story completely caught me off guard, but I really liked, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I really liked how Edith and her daughter worked to save the estate. And I just finished rewatching all of Downton Abbey. I kind of was on a kick. So this parallel story with the Biltmore house just really rung out true of how much work it is to keep with these massive homes going, and yet how important those homes were, those ancestral homes were to these families. And so,
and the neighborhood,
and the community,
the community, how they actually provided, you know, the tenant farmers basically that were able to have that, you know, that potential to work the land. And it was, and I had not known, and I don't know if either of you knew, I didn't know that Edith and George were supposed to be on the Titanic.
I didn't know that either.
I thought that was really interesting, especially after we had read about, you know, the Astors being on the Titanic. We had read that book, what is it, The Second Mrs. Astor. I think that's another book that we had covered as in our historical fiction segments, and it all kind of brought it back around. So
Debbie Stone, I agree with you. Edith, I ended up with so much respect for Edith Vanderbilt and the amount of things she did in her life. I mean, she was clearly fulfilled by not only taking care of her husband's estate, but the way she did it with protecting the forest and the people. And like, she really embraced the village of Asheville and adopted it as her own family. The way she just really impressed me as like a person that made a real difference in the world. And then when she went on her whole life and did it, that was her fulfilling. That was what she did for her life. And she was my favorite Vanderbilt. No offense to Cornelia, but
Edith was very easy to like. And I mean, what was she, almost 6 feet tall? I mean, I can't even imagine back then. Even now, a woman that height, you don't see that often. I can't even imagine in the 1900s and 1920s, you know, what that must have been like. And yet, you know, she was always listed in any sort of historical data or newspaper about her style and her grace. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of tall. I'm 5'7". I'm not real tall, but you know, sometimes I just feel like a big old lumbering dork, you know, especially when I'm around, you know, these little graceful petite women. I feel like a big old, you know, moo cow. And I can't imagine being that tall and then still being so beautiful and graceful. So just, I loved Edith. I loved the storyline with George. I liked it. It broke my heart. You know, how he died. And again, you can Google it. If you never read the book, you can find out how he died. And the shock that, you know, the doctor was there and then the next day he's gone, you know, that just very heartbreaking. That was a very heartbreaking story. And I can say, was this, and I don't know, I didn't Google enough before we got here. Was this Kristy's first entrance into historical fiction, you know, with the dual timelines, or has she done that before? I know it was her first hardcover.
I can answer that because our commenters have answered it for us.
Oh, good.
It is her first. It's her first hardcover and her debut in historical fiction.
She did a nice job. I loved how she, yes, Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. It was her first.
Thank you, Sharon. Sharon also says she's got another one coming out in 2024.
Oh, good. Good. You know, Barb, I'm sure you're going to get to talking about Barb and I, throughout all these programs and being I'm obviously a writer of both historical fiction and I've only had 6 contemporary novels. So I feel I'm definitely a historical author, and you're more of the contemporary set moving into historical. But together, I think we have very strong feelings about authors writing real people. So,
yes.
So what did you think about,
I actually think she did a very good job of writing the real people. What I think, when you said it and you were talking about the different voice, her voice changed in the storylines. Mm-hmm. If you pay attention to it, the way she, she
changed tenses, so that helps.
And it had a much more old-fashioned feel when she did Edith and Cornelia. She really did enough shifts. Sometimes you read those where they shift and they still stay modern. Mm-hmm. She managed to really portray the time shift like you were in the past. I thought she did a really great job with that. And as someone who is struggling to be historical after 25 or 26 contemporary books, it's not easy. So hats off to her that she pulled that off so easily and so well. And I thought it was interesting moving to the contemporary that the two storylines really mirrored each other. It didn't occur to me at the time but the contemporary almost feels like it's a mirror image of it. Did you guys
in some ways?
Emily, did you think that? Or
I did. And, and speaking of the different timelines and point of views, there was the time where I was like, I don't know how she's going to pull this story together. Sometimes you can see it, but I thought, where is she going with this? But yeah, that is interesting. Now that you're saying, I'm still pondering everything you just said just prior to this. I don't know. What do you think, Renee?
I loved that she did. I do think that she did have different voices, but I also think that first person can feel more contemporary to me, even though I've seen it done in historical fiction a lot. But there was something about, I think so that probably really serviced the contemporary sort of voices. The old-fashioned, maybe third person, past tense it just lends itself to a more old-fashioned feel. It's probably why I use it most of the time in my historical fiction. I will say that I really did like how she captured these women. And, if you read the author note in the back, she talks about how there wasn't really a lot of original data. As a journalist, she likes to go to primary sources, and there wasn't a lot of primary sources. So she had to do really a lot of digging to get to Edith and Cornelia's story. And I think she did a really good job of that. And I would definitely say, I'm like you, Emily, I really was wondering how she was going to connect the stories, because obviously the wedding veil, or else it wouldn't be called the wedding veil, was going to be a connection there. But normally when you see the historical and a contemporary dual timelines, there's a connection, a personal connection between the characters, and there's not in this book, and yet she still pulled it off, which is it sort of set this one apart, because a lot of times it's like a great granddaughter or a granddaughter or a niece. Somehow there's a connection between the two timelines, and I didn't see that with this one. And there is a connection, obviously, and the way she pulls it off, it's all off stage, and I liked how she did that, because it did set this book apart from a lot of the other books that I've seen do the dual timelines. So that I was very impressed with her, just thinking outside the box there.
Yeah. Well, and I, for those who aren't familiar, again, this is not, it's mentioned if you go to Biltmore, that they have a recreation of the veil. They do not have the original veil. Mm-hmm. And that's what she used as the basis for her, this whole thing, was that little plaque about how it was
really went missing.
Yep. Yeah, really did go missing. It set off everything. I thought that was it. So it did work for me. It was
how she pulled it in, she pulled it into the modern timeline was very, very creative. You can tell she's not an amateur at this. She knows what she's doing.
The other thing I noticed is that all four stories kind of had the same theme. Would you agree that it was all four were starting over, or finding their place in the world, kind of, and taking a second chance at some point in the book. Edith takes a second chance. Cornelia does, in a much different way than I expected, but she does. And then you still have Julia and Babs, who are taking their transition. That's a good way to put it. They all are in transitions.
Transitions. I think that's yes. I think that's really a good way to put it. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, and I also think, and I can say, and again, this comes back from my, my degree's in economics and my master's degree is in religious studies. So I don't come into this business as an author with a writing background. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a writer. I always make fun at the one C I ever got was in creative writing in college. So that's, if you want to be a successful author, get a C in one of your creative writing courses. And awesome. Yeah, I dropped that class. Anyway, one of the things that I really did enjoy, was that, so basically I cut my teeth writing romance, and there's some don't shoot me, all you romance authors who love romance or romance readers. There's a formula. And so as I was reading through this, and I went, oh, here we go, another romance. And I really kind of had to set aside my bias toward romance because I have read so many contemporary romances through the years. And I just kind of wanted to sort of immerse myself. And I can tell you that she definitely has more of a women's fiction voice, Kristy. And it didn't feel like, lather, rinse, repeat is kind of the word I use for romances anymore. And a great romance is a great romance. And I do adore a good, solid romance. But I guess that's my way of saying that I think Kristy took a lot of the tropes of romances, the second chance, the meet cute, when you have the modern day Julia meeting someone, meeting Connor, that was a meet cute moment. You also have sort of, so there was a lot of tropes. You have a lot of the love lost trope, the fish out of water trope. So there's a lot of tropes in there, but she just did some really nice twisting of the tropes. And I definitely appreciated that. And I will definitely be reading more of Kristy's books. So what did you think, Emily, in terms of, have you read a lot of romance or?
I have not read a lot of romance. I've read a lot of Kristy's other books. I feel like, and those are obviously very different from this book. They're the perfect beach read for me. If anyone's going on vacation and they ask me for a lighthearted read, I said Kristy Woodson Harvey. Same with Patty Callahan Henry's. Her older books are more like the low country beach town, sweet little romance type books. And so, so I was surprised by this book. I got back from California on a red eye last night, so I'm a little out of it right now. So if I'm not fully
thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't hear what you said.
She said, thank you for being here.
Oh, yes. Well, we had a great time golfing in wine country, but I forgot your original question. What did I think?
Well, about have you read a lot of romance? What did you think in terms of how Kristy handled, because there's a lot of romance in this book, and I didn't know because I haven't read her other books. Is this typical for a Kristy book, or is this one just okay?
I think so. What does Deb say? Deb would know if she's read her other
books.
books.
Actually, no, she'll answer that one. I was going to say Robin Klein made a good point though too, which was all four women did not live their lives according to the expectations of others. They all did do well. Everyone had expectations. They all went their own way and carved their own path, which is true. I didn't think about it, but you're right. All four did. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, you said this book is more different than Kristy's others, or would you say?
Romance wise, I would say it's similar. Okay. Because there's always, the twists and turns. Honestly, Babs, who is one of my probably favorite characters in the book, she mimics more of some of the other, like the Peachtree Bluff series. If you decide to read it before the TV series comes out, she reminds me a little bit of like a mix of characters from those prior books.
But can we all agree we loved Babs' storyline? It
was
her. Really nice to see a senior citizen having a romance.
Yes. I loved Babs, and I have to say one of the things that I really loved about her is, I don't know how old Kristy is, but she's certainly not 85, and I'm assuming she's very far away from 85. And the way that she wrote Babs was the most authentic. And same with Edith. She wrote these older ladies with such authenticity. And that is, I have found in between helping new writers, not Kristy, but helping a new writer or even reading other writers and seeing that their lack of life experience shows in their characterization, and it did not show in Kristy, that she understood, the decision to leave home and to look for, a senior center, so to speak, and doing it after the husband has died, not before. And having gone through that with my father and watching all of that happening, it was so well done. What did you think, Barb?
I really liked Babs' storyline. I liked the idea that she never stopped loving her or stopped loving her first husband. And you know that she said this is the love of her life. And like that she was so upfront with Miles, like, I'm not getting married again.
Mhm.
And I actually did. I liked it. I thought the whole concept of having a second chance was a great, how all these women did. I loved that theme. And I love that she went for it, despite the fact that she was 81 years old, and that you know that they're going to have a vibrant partnership. I really, really enjoyed Babs. Plus, I just kind of liked her voice. She was in the first person, and it just had just the right amount of snarkiness to it when she was thinking about her daughters, and kind of scares me. That's what my mother might have been thinking when we put her in a home. But
Well, and I know as somebody with an adult daughter who tries to parent me sometimes, I hope Hillary, if you're watching this, yes, you do try to parent me sometimes. As you know, because she's an adult now, she has her little children, and she has toddlers, so she sometimes treats me like a toddler, and it's kind of cute when she starts to parent me. But I so related to Babs, not in the way that Babs went through it, but in having your daughter tell you what you should be thinking, how you should go about it, trying to dress. I mean, my daughter tries to dress me, and I'm like, and you're not going to dress me, and so I really related to that part of it, just her frustration with those daughters. And that was a nice little thread. I could have had a whole book on Babs. I just love her.
Emily's too much of a young, and her daughter's not going to. Your daughter's not telling you what to wear yet.
She's not there yet, but you have me thinking, do I try and parent my mom? Probably.
It's all meant in. I mean, honestly, I do love, the mama, because she calls me mama. But when she's really upset with me, mom, it's just really cute. I actually have started to kind of embrace it, but for a while it was very frustrating.
See, I have a boy, so it's quite a bit different. He's told me that if I start to slip, he's putting antlers on me and sending me out to the woods in hunting season. So I think that pretty much.
He's also a military man.
He is a military man, so that is it. He said, "Yep, just put some white gloves and antlers on, Mom, and we'll send you out in the hunting season." If it's possible.
So can we talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, Barb, I keep taking over for you. And no spoilers, so we're not going to say what, but were you surprised at the reason for Julia leaving school? And what did you think of that reason? Like how she handled that?
Emily.
I was surprised. And so I read the book, and then I started listening to it again. And even listening to it just the other day, I was bristling at the reason why she left. And I think and I don't think this is spoiling anything, but when you are in a relationship with a savior complex, and you've got to save this person, you could see what a level of unhealth it led to in Julia's relationship with, what was his name? The other one.
Hayes. Was it
Hayes? Yes.
Hayes. Yeah.
And I don't know. I just found myself bristling again about how toxic that whole relationship probably was. But even though she loved him and he loved her, it just wasn't a good match. So
I'm thinking about it, and when I first read it, I was like, it seemed a little weak. Like, oh, that was why you left. But then I also realized, as a writer and her writing choices, if she had tried to do anything deeper, it would have detracted from the story. She needed something. But if you gave it a much deeper story, then she's got to go off and figure it's going to take a lot longer to solve and really take away from the story she's trying to tell. So I think she purposely had to keep it not heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it did sort of fit in with the theme, which was, growing up and taking
letting
charge
go of the old, embracing the new. Yeah. It was hard for me because I was looking at it as a person who is a different person than I was in my early 20s, at 21, I guess was she 21 or 22 at the time? And I'm thinking about, I graduated, I'd been sorority on my, the sorority president. I just been kind of the big gal on campus. And then almost a month after graduation, broke up with my boyfriend who I thought I was going to marry, and couldn't find the right job, ended up working in hotels for a while in Orlando, getting a job at the Disney parks, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And when I started tapping into that and kept feeling as though I was not taking the right choices. And thankfully, reading Kristy's sort of the way she handled Julia, I felt almost better about having that time in my life where I was floundering a little, because I felt like it was so realistic. I think we think if you've got it all together in college that somehow you're going to have it, or at that age that you have to have it all together. And what is it they say, the most stressful time in a woman's life is in her early 20s. We would think it would be older, but I guess it's considered a really hard time. And I thought about my daughter at that age. And so I think that in that respect, at first I was like you, Barbara, I was like, oh, this feels a little easy way out. And I was just cringing. I was like, oh, come on, really? And then I thought, no, wait a minute. That makes sense with who she was before the book started. And so I thought that made sense. And then I thought it also, how many times do we have a chance to take and I had an opportunity to take this amazing job in New York City, and I chickened out, and I would just will regret that. I don't regret it now because everything else, leads to a different, but I regretted that for years. And I remember thinking that is how we are, and especially when she was in it was a pretty toxic relationship with Hayes. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and I liked how Kristy doesn't bring you into the angst of it. And yet you still know that it was toxic, and how she handled that. I thought that was great.
So I think it's safe to say we all recommend the book, but in fairness, was there anything that we didn't work for us? I mean, we talked about the Julia thing, and we can understand now why she did it, but was there anything that didn't work for you, or was it all wins all the way? I have one pet peeve, which I will share at the end, but we're going to let you guys first. Renee, Emily?
I'm kind of a weird reader in that sometimes I get really invested into a story, and I don't know if it's my season of life that I have young children. I am teaching now. I have a shorter window of time. So when I'm fully engaged in the story, I don't want to be interrupted by, a different timeline jump in. And so that has always been my thing. It can sometimes drive me crazy, but I totally understand it. It keeps the reader engaged, and it keeps you wanting to know. So that's just my weird quirk. I didn't like how Cornelius's life ended up, but that's real.
Real.
So that was true, and I was just so disappointed by that. And I'm not a prude, but I prefer more closed door romance, and so that was a little more, open. Julia's little steamy love affair. You very much felt like you were there. So,
yeah. And again, so I highly recommend the book. I think it's an absolute perfect beach read. I think it is. It's got more meat to it than a romance novel. So I feel as though if I was going to recommend a beach read, I would absolutely recommend this book over a romance, just a straight romance novel. And I would recommend it for anyone who likes contemporary women's fiction or just women's fiction. I think for me, and as much as I really enjoyed the historical timeline, the historical parts, for me, I think I would have preferred it to be meatier. And that's me, because I am reading and writing World War II fiction. And I think I just wanted a richer, more in-depth story personally. And I would have loved a whole book just about the Vanderbilts in the historical time period and just really digging in. I'm telling you, that Cornelia, her and Edith, their relationship, the mother-daughter relationship, what an amazing, I feel like I was teased, and I wanted the full story. And even
they would have made a great story.
When Cornelia's in New York, and I'm assuming, was it the Algonquin group? Was she a part of that group? I don't know if she was, those literary I don't know, but it was around that time when she was hanging out with all those artists and getting into numerology, you know, and I'm just saying that would be my only caveat. That doesn't, that's a personal bias. It does not at all take away from this book. It's amazing.
Well, Renee, maybe you should write a book on that.
Yeah, there you go.
Just saying, it's a book idea.
There you go. Oh my gosh, honestly, my editors would love that. My editor would love that. Yeah.
So mine is
I'll
a
meet
really
you at the Biltmore if you want to come visit. Okay, go ahead, Barb.
Oh,
Sorry.
thing, but
I am coming to visit in August. Or no.
So I've told Renee this anyways. The only thing that really bothered me was towards the end, they were very cavalier about passing around this 120-year-old lace and diamond trimmed veil. And I was like, can't you people do something? And it's valuable. Stop sticking under beds and passing it on, passing it on. And like, they're all just taking it out of the closet and leaving it places. And I kept saying, that's an old piece of lace. Could you feed a little bit? And it was really bothering me. A little more respect. Maybe I'm just a little bit neurotic about old lace, but
yeah, it got a little caperish, like they were on a caper, and it was super cute. But I can see
something, and I'm like, no, put it in a box. That was about. So that was my nitpicky thing. So, but I will recommend it too. I think it's great. I think it's going to be a big book this summer because people are in the mood for light reading and for something that's happy.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do say, and I'm with y'all too. I felt like I was just negative. I did enjoy it as well. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. 5 stars means like I would reread it and in a heartbeat. And I really though liked the way that Kristy explored the relationships with all the different women.
Yep.
And I just thought that Babs and Julia and their relationship was so precious. And I was close with my grandmothers, but not in a way that Babs and Julia were. And with my grandmothers were not encouraging me to get out of my marriage. I just thought it was absolutely precious. And even though Babs had contentious daughters, it just skipped a generation, and she and her granddaughter were just really close. And I just thought that was really sweet. And then Edith and Cornelia. So
yeah, I think Susan Meisner, that's always one when she gives speeches, talks about how dual timelines only work if it serves the story. And I think this was one of those cases. I know you were not huge fans of dual timeline, but they did pass seamlessly, and they really did work together. Like the two relationships were so similar in so many ways. I think that it worked really well in this particular book.
Well, and I think we have to remember that Kristy, from what I think the note, she was writing this during the pandemic, I think, and having had, I think I had to write 2 books during the pandemic, and that was, I'm just going to tell you, that was hard as an author. It's hard to be creative during that time, even though as an author, we are chained to our computer. We're inside, we were already sort of, sheltering at home, but it was a whole different feel because you couldn't get out and go to the coffee shop to write on a day that you wanted to just get out of the house. And just the stress of it all. I don't read that in this book. I don't feel that subtext in this book. And so, kudos to Kristy for being able to write this book and not have, during a really difficult time and not having it show in the storyline. So that also made me really respect her. I cannot wait to go back and read her other books. I'm probably going to glom her, which is for our listeners or viewers. Glomming is when you go back and read every single thing that the author has ever written after you discover them. And so that will be me. I will be glomming Kristy for this summer. It's going to be a perfect time.
Perfect
there you
summer.
Go. All right. One last question. Quick answer. I know we have to wrap up because Emily's don't want to leave her daughter standing on the corner. All right. A beach summer read. Do you prefer hardcover, paperback, or e-reader?
Paperback.
Renee?
I'm a paperback.
Me too. And I was wondering that the other day online, if you were an author, which would you rather have? I mean, this is great that she got a hardcover book, or would it be better to have a really well-marketed paperback? So paperback, yeah, I have to say paperback as well because it can get wet.
This came out in the spring, didn't it? Didn't this come out?
Yeah, this did come out in the spring. So that makes sense.
Spring, and she does have the paperback version. So,
Is the paperback version out now?
Is it? I don't know. I assume there usually is. So
yeah, we'll have to look. But
yep.
So thank you, Emily, for coming. We always
Thanks
love
for
when you
having
come.
me.
You always bring us a good author. If people are interested, Emily is on Facebook and on Instagram, and her handle is @thebookdistiller. You only need to go know that one. It goes for both. And she does regular reviews on books. And so please follow her as well. And I hope we had some new faces here today. So I hope you will come back. We're going to be back in 2 weeks for our non-book one. We're going to keep our wedding theme going and talk about iconic and historic weddings. There's some threats that our wedding photos may show up, so you can see some 80s hairdos. But for some of us,
I got married. I had a Southern Belle hat, so you get to see my Southern Belle hat. I
Love it.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Poor Debbie. We hope you will come back. Yes, we'll show our wedding pictures. Mine is very dynasty.
Yeah. And then in July, we're going to be covering Madeline Martin's latest book, The Librarian Spy,
which also looks really great.
Our July book.
So, and just a plug, because last week we gushed like crazy about our friend Piper's book. It is out today. So we'll give final plug to our friend because we really love the book. So again, thank you, Emily. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.